Welcome to Lingua Latina Tutorials with Mr. K, Pensum D. This video helps to explain the new grammar and syntax found in Chapter 42 of the Lingua Latina per se Illustrata series. It is meant to accompany the Latine Disco text available from Focus Bookstore and the Pensum D worksheets available from 50%latin.blogspot.com or christianlanguage.com. So let's get right into the text. In lines 6 through 7, we have our first new feature. So to start the sentence, we need to begin here with Ut homines agrestes novum regum vererentur, ipse se Augustiorum fecit insignibus imperii, cum vestem purpuream induit tuum lictores duodecim sumpsit, qui fasces et secures gerentes regi ante irent. So that the country people would fear the new king, the king himself made himself more wholly respectable with the insignia of a ruler or of the empire. He not only put on the purple cloth, the purple vestment, but he also took up 12 lictors so that they would go before the king carrying the fasces and the axes, the sticks and the axes, which you see. We know that fascism is derived from this fasces, this symbol of authority, the bundle of sticks with the axe embedded in it. So here the new feature we find with ante irent. This is the third person plural imperfect subjunctive active. So ante ira, to go before, adding the MST mustis and NT endings will give us the imperfect subjunctive active. And so why we have this? We have it with qui, which is a relative clause of purpose, so that so he did this. He took them up. He took 12 lictors to go before the king carrying the fasces and the secures, the axes. So this kind of a qui is actually really an ut, and here is showing the purpose of why he got these lictors to go before him. The other new feature here is in the use of cum and tum. Here cum, which we've seen 3 different ways to use cum before. We've seen it as with plus the ablative, showing accompaniment, and we've seen it as when, sometimes with the indicative or sometimes with the subjunctive. And then we've also seen it as meaning since or although, and then it takes the subjunctive with it. So here is a different use of cum, where it means not only when it's paired with tum, not only this but also this, or both this and this. So you could translate it as both and, or not only but also. The next new feature is in line 13. So here we have et ox finitimis populis quilibet homo, sine discrimine utrum liberan servus esset perfugere poterat. So any person whatsoever, qui libet homo, or any person was able to flee there from the neighboring peoples, from the bordering peoples, without a distinction whether he was a free man or a slave. So here the new feature is qui libet. Qui libet is just qui quae quod in front of libet. Here is the masculine form qui, nominative with homo. Whatever person you want, or we could just translate this as any person was able to flee there. And it's the equivalent of quicumque, anyone, or also qui vis, uh, whoever you like. Again, just translating them as translate it in any one of those with those translations showing any person that you choose or anyone that you like. The other well, if we're going to decline qui libet, it's going to decline just like qui quae quod. So we'd have qui libet, quem libet, cuius libet, cui libet, just like qui, and the masculine, feminine, and neuter. The same thing with vis, qui vis, quem vis, etc. The next new feature is in line 17. So here we have possent. So we'll start up at the very beginning here with civitate ita aucta, Romulus centum senatores creavit, sive quia is numerus satisserat, sive quia soli centum cives nobiles erant qui senatores creari possent. So thus, after the state had been increased, here's an ablative absolute. You see a lot of those in this chapter. With the state having been increased, the perfect passive participle here, aucta, from augera, to increase. So having been increased, literally with the state having been increased. But we translate that as after this has happened. So thus, after the state had been increased, Romulus chose 100 senators, whether it was because this number was enough, or whether it was since there were only 100 noble citizens who were able to be chosen as senators, or there were only 100 noble citizens to choose to be chosen as senators. So here, this form of qui plus possent, the imperfect subjunctive of posse, or to be able, we have, this is another example of a purpose. It's more of a result clause here, but it's still acting like ut, whether it was because there were only 100 that senators, or noble citizens, that, so we're translating like an ut, that were able to be chosen as senators. So that's why, that just explains the subjunctive here. We have a qui clause with a subjunctive, and it's because it's a purpose/result clause. The next new feature is in line 24 through 26. So we have, we'll need to start a little bit earlier to get to the beginning of the sentence. Okay, so we have, sed cum novus populus mulieribus careret, neque viris Romanis cum finitimis connubia essent, Romulus ex concilio patrum legatos ad vicinas gentes misit, qui societatem connubiumque novo populo peterent. Long sentence here. So, but when the new people were lacking, that were lacking women, they didn't have any wives, and there were no marriages with the for the Roman men with their neighboring peoples. Then Romulus sent ambassadors to the neighboring people from by the council of his senators, by the council of the fathers of the city. He did that. Two, and here's another example of a qui ut clause, right? He sent them to seek and a kind of an alliance, a friendship, and with the new people, and marriage. He said to seek friendship and marital allegiance or marriages with the new people. So here, qui with the imperfect subjunctive peterent is the equivalent of an ut and ut clause. The next new feature is in line number 34. Let's go down here to 34, and we'll start with multi mortales convenere studio etiam videndae novae urbis maxime ex opidis proximis caenina crustamerio antemnis etiam sabinorum omnis multitudo cum liberis ac conjugibus venit. So many people, mortales just means people, many people came together with the desire also of seeing the new city, especially from the neighboring towns of Caenina, Christomerium, and Antemnae. Also, the whole citizenry of the Sabines came with their children and their wives. So here we have convenera. They came together. What this is, it looks like an infinitive, a second conjugation infinitive, but in reality, it comes from convenira, a fourth conjugation verb. So many people came together. Era is a shortened form, as we see in the margin, of erunt, and it's quite common, especially in Livy. They came together, so understand this is a third person plural perfect active. This is the equivalent of convenerunt, and you'll see more of those later. In lines 41 and 42, we have, we better go back so we can do the full line. At the end of, so start with line 40, ubi spectaculi tempus venit, atque et oculi et mentes. So we'll just translate that so we don't have to go back and forth. So when the time of the show came, and the eyes and the minds were turned there, or something like that, turned to that event, or turned there, had been turned there, conversai erant, then, after the signal was given, here's an ablative absolute, with the signal having been given, then after the signal was given, the Roman youth ran out to grab the girls, to snatch up the young maidens. So here, we have rapiendas, which we should recognize as a participle. It's a future passive participle, undusa ending, meaning something that is about to be done. So girls about to be snatched away. And here in this specific situation, this future passive participle is being used as a gerundive. So it is matching, it's an adjective modifying virgenes, and has the same accusative ending, feminine, with virgenes. So they ran out ad rapiendas virgenes, to grab the girls, to snatch away the girls. It's a way of showing purpose. We could also do this, and we're going to see some other ways to do purpose in this chapter. You could also do it with an ut clause or some other, we'll see shortly, 4 other ways to do it. In line 104, skipping all the way ahead to 104, we have almost there. All right, so here at 104 we have huius filia virgo forte aquam petitum extra moenia ierat. So the daughter of this guy, his name was Spurius Tarpeius, the daughter of this guy, the virgin daughter, so the maiden daughter of this guy, by chance, had gone outside the walls, aquam petitum, to seek water, or to get some water. This is from petera, petitum, from petera. Petera, to seek, petivisse, to have sought, and then petitum esse, to have been sought, is our passive, our perfect passive. From that form, from that third principal part, petitum esse, we get our supine, petitum. And with verbs of motion, like ierat, had gone out of the walls, petitum can show purpose. It's the first supine, and shows that what her purpose was in going out, to seek some water. And 105 to 106, actually starting here with et itatius, auro polecendo persuasetut Sabinos armatos et in arcem acciperet. We have Tatius, this is the king of the Sabines, persuaded her, so talking about the daughter, this is Tarpeia, Tatius persuaded Tarpeia, persuaded her. It's et-e in the dative because persuasit takes the dative case. Persuaded her by offering gold. He persuaded her to accept the armed Sabines into the citadel or into the secured fortress. So akiperet, we have the imperfect subjunctive with an ut clause. This is a purpose ut clause. He persuaded her to do this. Um, so why? This is just one of 5 ways that we can do show purpose. And so here is a good time to quickly review those 5 purpose clauses in Latin. The one way here, like we see with ut, is to use an ut clause. So as an exercise, take the sentence like, he sent the ambassadors. Ambassadors use the word legati for ambassadors. He sent the ambassadors to seek peace. So if we're going to use an ut clause to say that, he sent the ambassadors to seek peace, we would use legatos, accusative, misit. He sent the ambassadors ut pacem peterent, to seek peace. We'd use peterent, the imperfect subjunctive, because we're in historic, historic kind of a clause, because we started with a perfect verb. So our sequence of tenses will show that we have to have an imperfect or a past tense verb subjunctive afterward. So he sent the legates to seek peace, pacem peterent. The other way to do it, just like we saw with petitum, the supine, the first supine, we could say legatos misit, he sent the legates, or the ambassadors, pacem petitum, to seek peace. We can have an accusative with the supine. That's the second way to show purpose. A third way is with the gerund and gerundive. So we've seen those before. Odd plus a gerund can show purpose, to do something. So ad petendum, to seek. We could also use a gerundive, so it agrees with the thing that's being sought. So we could say, with our sentence, he sent the ambassadors to seek peace, we could say, legatus misit pacem ad petendum, to seek peace, and use pacem as the accusative object of petendum. Or we can use the gerundive, where we have the passive form, and we could say legatos misit ad pacem petendam. Petendam, with an am ending, agreeing with pacem, the accusative feminine and form of pax. The fourth way we've seen in this chapter is with qui, where qui is acting like ut. And so we could say legatos misit, he sent the legates, qui pacem peterent, to seek peace. Or he sent the legates who were seeking peace, but understanding that qui with a subjunctive there is not a relative clause, but a purpose clause. And the last way is to use causa, which the ablative form of causa with a long a, causa for the purpose of, and then we can also have a gerund or gerundive clause. So we could say legatos misit, he sent the legates, pacem petendi causa, for the purpose of seeking peace, where pacem is the object of the genitive gerund petendi. Or we could make it more likely the Romans would put it in a gerundive clause. So legatos misit, he sent the legates pacis petendi causa, for the purpose of seeking peace, where pacis and petendi are both genitive, and petendi has the genitive singular feminine ending to agree with pacis, the feminine genitive of pax. So those are your 5 possible purpose clauses. And so you should take notes on those before you move on. In line 106, we have accepti Sabini tarpeam necavere. So the Sabines having been received in, so after the Sabines were accepted into the city, tarpeam necavere, they killed Tarpeia. Necavera is actually necaverunt, we see in the margin, so it's the third person plural perfect active indicative, or indicative active, and this is from nekara, right, to kill. And so this, even though this looks like an infinitive, it is a common perfect ending. The next new feature is in 128. So let's go down here where we'll start with, I think, Ot tu pater deum hominumque hinc saltem archehostes. But you, Father of God, of the gods, and of men, uh, at least drive away the enemy from here. So the new feature is pater deum. Deum is the genitive plural of deus. Deus being God, deum being short for deorum, of the gods. And so this is a common alternate form for deorum, deum. The next new feature is in line 160. And in 160 we have, move ahead here, so we have movet res cum multitudinem tum duces. So the matter, it not only moves the crowd or the multitude, but also the leaders. So here we have another example of cum tum, not only but also, or we can say both and. It moves both the crowd or the majority people, and then, or the common people, and then the leaders. The next new feature is in line 192. And let's go down to, here we go, with ibi Marco praesidio relicto, egressus cum omnibus copiis partem militum locis occulti sedere in insidiis usit, ipse cum parte maiore atque omni equitatu profectus ad ipsas prope portas fidenarum accedens hostes ad pugnam excivit. Another long sentence. So here we have there with us, after he left behind a small guard, another ablative absolute, with a modest guard having been left behind. Egressus cum omnibus copiis, having marched out with all of his troops, he ordered a part of the soldiers, a small part of the soldiers, to settle down in hidden places in ambushes. He commanded them to settle down in secret places in ambush. And he himself, with the greater part, and with all of the cavalry, so he himself, having set out with the greater part and of the soldiers and with all the cavalry, he approaching the gates themselves, or approaching near the gates themselves of Fidenae, it's a city near Rome. He excited, or not, it's not excited, he kind of urged the enemy out to battle. He encouraged them to come out to battle, exquivit, called them out or excited them to do this, to go fight. But the new features here, it's not excitavit or exquira, it is the use of egressus and profectus. So this can throw off Latin students who are first seeing these perfect participles like egressus or laudatus or amatus, and what can throw you off is the use of the active and the passive in these perfect participles, because most early verbs you've learned before the deponents only had passive participles. So laudatus, having been praised, so it would be act like an adjective, the praised man, vir laudatus, or amatus, the loved man or the beloved man, vir amatus. Here we have deponent participles, so from egredi, to march out, egressus, having marched out is, notice it's active in meaning. It's still an adjective. It's still adjectival because it's a participle, but it's active. So he, having marched out with all his troops, commanded them, blah, blah, blah. And then we also have profectus from profikiski, another deponent, to set out. So here profectus, having set out, again, active, not having been set out, but having set out. So if it's a deponent participle, it has an active meaning, having actively done this thing. If it is just a regular participle from a verb, a non-deponent verb, it's going to be passive in meaning if you see that participle. The next new feature is in line 274. And let's go ahead to 274. One more page. And here at line 274, we have tum inter rex contione advocata quod bonum Faustum felix quisit inquit quirites regem create. So then the interrex, or the king, king between kings, the guy who was standing in place of the king at the time, after an assembly had been called together, said, may this assembly be, may what you're doing, may your choice be good, blessed, and lucky. Quirites, choose your king. So here we have the new feature as contione advocata, literally with the assembly having been called together. Advocata, here is our perfect passive participle from advocara. So advocara is a regular verb. It's not it's not a deponent verb. So this perfect participle is passive, having been called together, rather than having called active. So when you have this ablative, perfect passive participle, together with another ablative here, ablative noun, contione, we have our ablative absolute, with the assembly having been called together. And we would translate that, as we've seen many times, after the assembly was called together. The next new feature is in line 276, so right after this. And we have patres de inde si regem dignum qui secundus ab Romulo numeretur creaveritis auctores fient. So then the fathers of the city will be made the supporters, the authors, the backers. Then the fathers of the city will be made the backers of your choice if you choose a king worthy to be numbered as one that follows from Romulus. So here we have the new feature, actually not entirely new because we've seen it a few times in this chapter, is qui acting as ut. If you choose a king worthy ut to be numbered as one who follows from Romulus. So again, qui plus the subjunctive acting in the function of an ut clause. So the next new feature is in line 300. Let's go ahead to 300. And here at line 300 we have, we'll start up with Jupiter. Jupiter pater, si est fas, hunc num Pompilium cuius ego caput teneo, regem Roma esse, uti tu signa nobis certa declaris inter os fines quos feci. So this is a prayer. The priest prays Father Jupiter. If it is right that this man here, Numa Pompilius, whose head I am holding, if it is right that he be the king of Rome, uti, would that you declare or give us some clear signs between these borders which I have made. So couple things here. So the priest, he holds up his baculum aduncum, as we see in the margin note here, and he marks out a space in the sky to check the auspices. So he'll say, okay, from here to here, if I see birds, birds going a certain direction, there'll be a good omen. So just mark out the sky, and then he'll look for bird signs for a clear sign. And so the new feature, though, here is with the use of uti. Uti can mean utinam, or it could also mean ut, and formal like prayers or sacred literature. It's a very stylized way of saying ut or utinam. Here it means utinam. Would that you, Jupiter, would give us some clear signs. And that's why we have our imperfect subjunctive here, declares. Would that you do this. Sorry, not imperfect subjunctive, just our present subjunctive active here. Would that you would declare this or show us these signs. The next new feature is in line 306. So we'll start with populum ferocem pacem etegandum esse ratus ianum ad infimum argiletum fecit qui apertus bellum clausus pacem esse indicaret. We have, so this is pneuma ratus. Pneuma having thought that this wild people needed to be made calmer with some peace. He made the Temple of Janus, Janum, at the end of the Argiletum Road, which which when open was indicating that there was war, and which when closed, Clausen, was indicating that there was peace. And here we have a couple of features. One of them is the qui clause, again showing purpose. He made the Temple of Janus, and then qui is acting like ut. He made the Temple of Janus to show that there was war if it was open, and to show that there was peace if it was closed. And the other new feature is, which we've seen before, ratus, which is, you see in the margin, a deponent verb. Reri, to think, ratum esse, to have thought. Both passive in form, active in meaning. So ratus, as our perfect participle, is going to have an active meaning. So instead of having been thought, it is having thought. So this is pneuma having thought that this people needed this stuff. The next new feature is in line 364. Have at the bottom of the page. Nope, one more page. And at 364 we have, I'll start with, well, I guess we have to start all the way up here. So, ut fugiunt aquilas timidissima turba columbae, utque fugit visos agna novella lupos, sic illae timuera viros sine lega ruentes, constitit in nulla qui fuit ante color. So we have like doves, in the way that doves run away from eagles, doves being a very easily frightened flock or group, and just like an agna novella, a newborn lamb, runs away from wolves after it catches sight of them, or wolves that have been caught sight of. Thus, in this same way, those women were afraid, thus, those women rushing around without any kind of order whatsoever, sine lege, they feared the men. Actually, probably we got viros with ruentes. So thus those women feared the men rushing toward them without any kind of order, sine lege. constitit in nulla qui fuit ante color. The color which had been there before remained in not one of those girls. So all of them had gone pale in fear. The new feature here in these lines is in timuera. Thus, those girls were afraid. They feared. Timuera, from timera, to be afraid. Here, timuera. This is not the infinitive, right? Timera is the infinitive. To be afraid. This u here shows that we're in the perfect, and this is another example of a third person plural perfect. Timuerunt. They feared. That's been shortened down for poetic purposes to timuera, or just for the rhythm of language it was shortened down. So those are all the new features for chapter 42. Thank you for listening.